So thanks to all the speakers for your talks and knowledge and your interesting discussion. It's about to start in 3, 2, 1. Hurry up.
Go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for this very dynamic introduction. So now we have to keep the pace, okay? Well, it's great to be here. Let me just add to that introduction that I am also a proud member of i4Kids Europe. Because Inveniam is, Inveniam is part of this project and also Ad4Kids, so we are very deep in this thing. So let me start by asking Marc about impact investing, because okay, you are, you're a partner at the Montana Impact Fund, and what makes it an impact fund and not just a fund?
Okay, first, thank you for inviting me to this. I am super excited to be here. Also, it's super good to see the almost full house, no? And this is, I think we need to congratulate ourselves for this because it's extremely important. Answering your question, so basically, you have to think about impact investing as a new modality of, let's imagine that you are developing a drug, no? And you are doing this development in standard ways, and there's a new way to develop a drug, a new modality. So it's similar, it's happening in the investment arena. So you have traditional investment in early stage, and you know that only about 1.6% of this early stage traditional investment is being allocated into pediatric innovation. That's a number that comes very often. And this is a type of investment, a modality. It's focused on return of investment. Then, in the other side, you have what is called philanthropy, no? Or venture philanthropy. That's another modality. And investors providing venture philanthropy are not expecting a return of the capital that they are deploying into that, no? And in that arena, obviously, we need to increase, but I would like to say that it's working in some way that venture philanthropy is been investing money into children's hospitals in general. But that doesn't mean that research is going to reach the market, okay? You will generate pediatric innovation, but you still need funders like Francesca and Anna to take that innovation to the patient. But then you have also the problem that only 1.6% of traditional BC goes to early stage pediatric innovation. So clearly a financial gap. And a couple of years ago, when we were thinking about building what is today Montana, we found that this new modality called impact investing was the one that fits very nicely with the purpose of our fund. So basically, impact investing is providing to investors return of capital, but, and that's the important point, what is securing to the LPs, to the investors, is the impact. And how impact fund works different to other funds is that impact is on the top agenda of the fund managers. And there are many examples on the regulation of the funds that explains that, but you take the message of that. So it's kind of an evolution of venture philanthropy and not a traditional investment that, as we know, in biotech or life science.
Mm-hmm. So Anna and Francesca, when you pitch to an investor, do you change your pitch if it's an impact investor? Do you tell a different story?
I don't.
You don't?
No.
What do you tell them?
Our story is all about impact and access for kids. So our story is exactly the same, whether it's a traditional investor or an impact investor. And our goal is to create a not-for-profit out of our organization as well, so that we can help democratize and disseminate pain management solutions to kids all over the world. So we're very open about that, and that's part of our mission and vision. And it's communicated to traditional venture capitalists, to corporate venture capitalists, and to impact investors, because it's core to our business.
No, I'll get back to that in a minute. What about you, Anna? Do you pitch differently?
I think it's super important when we seek investment that there is like a match between the market goals and the investment type of investor. So basically, 2 words about Bitsphi. So what we aim to be the X-rays of the psychiatrist and the neurologist, and what we have is a diagnostic test to help doctors to diagnose ADHD and other cognitive disorders, right? So it is all about impact in our case as well. So we're talking about 5% of prevalence in kids, 3% in adulthood. We will come back to this point because I think this is an opportunity also for the pediatric to go to adulthood in the future. But coming to your point, I think basically we seek investors that really understand and that they care. They care about what we're going to generate with that. I'm not saying that we're not giving the expected monetary results. Of course, that implies that. But I think we don't seek just the money, right? We seek support and we seek understanding and we seek expand the technology in the way it really can reach the highest amount of kids possible, right? So maximum.
So
May I ask some debate?
it's a conversation. Go.
So I think that historically, co-founders and first CEOs of pediatric companies, they have to do what Francesca is nicely also suggesting, because mostly impact investment is a new modality, is emerging. It's going to grow massively in the next 10 years, but still is a small portion, so majority are traditional investors. So you are pitching in a way to adapt yourself as a co-founder or as a CEO with what is your client, no? Your first client is your investor. So, but this is going to change, and it's starting to change, because specifically in pediatric innovation, impact investing is super interested in the intentionality behind co-founders, why they are building that company. And traditionally, a very nice example is pediatric oncology. Many entrepreneurs in pediatric oncology, they create the company with a clear first indication in pediatric first, and they move to, because traditional VCs, and they kind of force a pivotal to say, okay, let's go first to adults, and then adults to children. And impact investing is not looking for that, because the intentionality of the funders is to go to pediatric first. So I think that debate between founders and investors is going to change.
So in a way, you self-select which kind of investor is right for you if they like the kind of things that you tell. So Francesca, when you said that you have like a statement, like it says what your company is doing, and if you don't like it, then you don't want your money. It's more or less what you're saying.
I mean, we're happy to take their money, but I think for us, it's really important that we're very transparent. We started the company to be a pediatrics-only company. The plan is never to expand to
Your company is called NEN. You cannot be
NEN.
more pediatric than that.
No, and for those that don't know, NEN means kids in Catalan, which is a nod to where
If now you
we're
do
based.
adults, it's not going to...
No, it's not. It'll be a little insulting. So, that's something that's really important to us. But when we do go to traditional investors, because we're looking at pain management in oncology specifically for the clinical validation piece of our work, because it's more organized, there are fewer centers, it's just a better research plan. Traditional investors will say, well, not that many kids have cancer. So, I think the lens is for our solution, which is a broad pain management tool that can address pain across the 400 million kids worldwide that are in pain, which is a massive and terrifying number. It's important to have a place to start. If you're, when you talk about intentionality, that intentionality comes through when you're having discussions with investors. But some more traditional investors want to see much bigger markets, the SAM, TAM, and SOM that they all talk about. They might be put off by the opportunity. One thing that has come up a couple of times this morning, and I think it's really important for policymakers, for investors, for healthcare systems to keep in mind, is the impact that pediatric care can have on adults. So in the case of pain, and in particular pain in pediatric oncology, if the psychological aspects of pain are not addressed when they're children, there's a lot of medical trauma that these kids undergo, and they develop almost a PTSD-like syndrome that if the psychological aspects are not addressed, 59% of adult survivors of pediatric cancer have pain. It's idiopathic pain. It's not caused by the cancer that they went through, but it's caused by these negative pain memories, which are really sticky and persist. So, treat it, and obviously we could never do those studies because we'd never get funding to do 30-year studies, but there's a lot of evidence that suggests that if you can treat kids, you'll stave off a lot of conditions that will come in adulthood, and that's really, really important.
70% of pediatric oncology patients, they survive today, but almost 95% of them, when they are older than 45, they have age-related disease. Oh. So if you think about the systemic impact, because now everyone in impact investing is talking about systemic impact, no? On how treat these patients, even they survive the cancer earlier, to prevent age-related disease, as well as managing pain. It's a systemic impact. It's changed many things, not only developing drugs or devices, it's changed healthcare in a way. So, but this requires time, yeah.
So I wanted to complement on that, because I was very touched on the presentation this morning in changing the lifetime of a kid, of a child, instead of just curing the disease, right? So, and in ADHD, so there are like 46 million children worldwide. In more than 40% of the cases, they do have another comorbidity. So the nature of the disease is very complex. And what happens in most of the cases, they have unsuccess at school, they have even drug problems, a lot of, really, really catastrophic situation. And if this is not properly managed, this really implies that 3% of the adults, they also have ADHD because they were never diagnosed, right? So early diagnosis is key, and leveraging technology to really delve into the root cause of the problem, because right now, how all the cognitive disorders are diagnosed today, they are just interviews that they are filling by teachers, by doctors, by parents, so they are not independent of the observer. And this is part of the problem we really want to tackle. And indeed, there is an underdiagnosed in adults that they don't know they have ADHD, and they do have more problems in terms of feedback. So they have problems at work, they are socially disconnected. So I think addressing the children problem might help also in the adulthood somehow, so, right? So we also have it in our roadmap to explore that, because basically we have a product that is for children, so basically from 7 to 12 right now. And so the child had to perform like a 20-minute task while we are using an EEG headset, and we can extract this information and we provide to the doctor like a comprehensive report. But what if this technology also works for adults, right? So I think this idea of just investing in adults and forgetting the kids doesn't make sense in all the cases, right? While the opposite process might be an opportunity for us.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, because both of you are working in areas that, of course, have an adult aspect to it, not just afterwards, but for people who are experiencing pain or ADHD as adults. And how do you deal with, let's say, the opportunity cost of not pursuing things in parallel?
In our case, we made a clear decision to create a solution for kids. It's a gamified cognitive behavioral therapy. It wouldn't be appropriate for an adult because it's a kid's game. And we're developing also for kids 7 to 12. We'll have another product for the littles, the 2 to 6-year-olds, and we're in discussions with Sesame Street to help us create content for that product. And then, of course, the adolescents, we don't want to forget about them. They'll be the next wave. But, you know, for adults, it wouldn't be engaging for them. You know, they don't care that there's a little pain monster that comes in and helps them and teaches them things. That there's a dragon that helps them, you know, with belly breathing to activate their parasympathetic nervous system. You know, and these are things that wouldn't resonate with adults. We'd have to create a different product for them because our product was created for children. And the designers, you know, we've worked with Centro Andedeo to talk to kids, and they take their jobs very seriously. And we have a kid advisory board who give us very unfiltered feedback, which is great. But it wouldn't apply to them, and that was intentionally done. That being said, one of our collaborators in the US is a caregiver for her mother who has quite late stage dementia. And she was playing around with it, and she said, and has pain. And she said, I'm going to give this to my mom. And she did, and she loves it. And so, you know, it's one of these edge cases that we weren't anticipating, but it just happened to be in her hands, and she gave it to her, and she enjoys it. So while we're not developing for adults, and we're not going to move into that area, you know, there's always the possibility that opportunistically things come up that could benefit beyond the initial population.
What about you, Anna? How you deal with this dual use, let's say?
Yes, I mean, maybe here I will compare because my background has been a lot in women's health. And to give you an example, we trained the algorithm for preeclampsia in 1,400 women. Right now, we're training the algorithm with 253 kids. It took us 8 years to collect the data set for this algorithm. While right now, of course, it took us a year, and I'm not saying, I mean, we are first mover and we have 3 years preference, but I think also this was, speed is important to go for the pediatric use as well. Also, I would say the willingness to pay and to help the kids from the parent side. I mean, I will compare Alzheimer and ADHD, okay? So in Alzheimer, there is no cure. Maybe Lily, I mean, they have promising results, and we all have seen that. But in ADHD, there is the possibility to treat if there is early diagnosis. And parents are going to do everything for the kids, right? So that was the second part, more like the willingness to pay and how the setup is there. So speed, and also, I mean, that's maybe my perspective, and there is less competition as well. I mean, when we were developing the preeclampsia algorithm, there were 20 apps doing the same, that in the end they need to consolidate, because I don't see all the doctors, you know, like using single solutions for every decision making in the pregnancy. So it was a more competitive, while right now, of course, we have competitors, but there is no, I think there are more opportunities that if you perform well, I mean, everything has to do with the performance of the product, right? So if you don't have clinical performance, what is called the other winner, you are not in the game, right? So I would say these were 3 important aspects, right? So, of course, high prevalence, we are not in a rare disease, so speed and willingness to pay, and I would say all of this.
I would like to change a little bit the angle of the conversation, if it's okay with you, about the science to business progression. And Marc, okay, so you have done the science to business route many times, and so you have been mostly on the entrepreneur side, trying to find money for the companies that you have founded. Now you are on the other side and distributing money to the companies that you like. How do you change, let's say, your mindset or the enthusiasm of, yeah, this is great, let's go, whereas as an investor you need to be more cautious about where you give your money? How is this a switch, or is this just natural?
The fancy word now is entrepreneur turned investor, no? It's the way they say. It's very difficult because most of your career I've been like Anna and Francesca, like pushing, no, for something to get a yes and now I am more into the nos, no?
Yeah.
And because basically on the deal flow from, I don't know, 50, 60, you have to say 1 or 2, no? So, and
Later I will ask you about that.
and especially on children's health, it's when you see a lot of intention, because something very interesting among entrepreneurs in pediatrics is that many of them, and hugely more that in other areas of life science, the intentionality, there's something behind. People is building a company because they love to do it, but because there's a personal reason behind. So for me, lesson learned to say no, or this is not yet, or this is early stage, it's extremely difficult. But the collective purpose of building this fund and be able to provide private capital to all these investors, because basically we are building this fund to be able to canalize much more entrepreneurship at very early stage is rewarding enough to do it, yeah.
And I'm the opposite. So I was an investor turned entrepreneur.
Exactly.
So
That's a rare one.
So I was a digital health venture capitalist for a number of years. And so, I was on the other side. And
You were saying no.
I was saying no. Not always even when I wanted to, but because, things wouldn't fit into the investment thesis, or it wasn't the right stage, or it wasn't the right team. There's 100 reasons why. But you do tend to understand the language that's spoken on the investor side, which helps. I had an investor very early on, try to give me this talk, and then he looked at me. We knew each other quite well, and he's like, "Oh yeah, excuse me," but he said, "I can't bullshit you." And I was like, "No." So that helps too. But I think understanding your audience in either one, and I think from your perspective, having been an entrepreneur, there's a sense of compassion and empathy that you feel towards them, because it's not easy. I think being an entrepreneur and a founder is not easy under the best of circumstances. It's, I think, more difficult in a space that doesn't get the visibility that it should, like pediatrics. And also, we find ourselves in a very difficult time in terms of, investment funding and investing in general, particularly in digital health and healthcare.
So where is the bottleneck? And that's a follow-up of your comment earlier about the project that you see 50 and you invest in one. Are these 49 projects not good enough? And be careful what you say, because I know that there are many people in the room that have very good projects. So is this a matter of the bottleneck is the money, is not enough money, or not enough good projects?
Not easy question, but I think for what is extremely difficult to find is people that is able to do the change that it requires a project from academia. Because, to be honest, most of the projects that we are analyzing, they are extremely good science, good tech, even good patents behind. But at the end, it comes to a group of people that you have to trust each other, and we have been entrepreneurs because this fund is built by entrepreneurs, not only myself, and you need to find this chemistry between investor, and that's for me what makes click in order to choose that project. It's not like a funnel, but more like making the click with the one that you think this is the one that is gonna, because at Montana, at least at Montana fund number 1, we have a lot of responsibility because we are the first fund in Europe on pediatrics. So we have to do it right.
Everybody's watching you.
Because if we do it right, it's going to be a Montana too, but also other Montanas because the need is there. So we have to find these clicks, and I think it's about the people, the team that you are building, not the other things, not the market, the opportunity. This also, obviously, but for me, it's the click between people.
And how you prepare for that?
For
the click.
I mean, if you ask me what is the one aspect that you should consider in early stage company is to be a good team builder. I completely agree. So I think there are like maybe 5 roles that you have to have there. I think the innovator and the science, as you say, usually they have been working to build the product or to build the technology for many years. But we always say that there has to be someone that is the glue of the company. There has to be someone that is the sales. So really go and check the product market fit as soon as possible. And we also like to say, because right now everybody talks about the minimum viable product, right? So we say, no, we don't do that. We do the minimum clinical product. And for us, that has been like a completely shift. So somebody that really manages the medical affairs side and talks to doctor and et cetera. And then, of course, you have the CTO and the CSO that usually they tend to come from in our case, they have been researching in this for years. They started the company. But I think it's all of these roles together that they are instrumental in getting, in an agile way, that agile, it's a difficult word in medical technology because you have regulatory, you have to find a good balance. But I think it's about all these roles together in our case, and this is exactly what we're doing right now. So to build this team, and we're very proud to say that.
Is that what you did, Francesca?
Yeah, I think you have to bring people together that are really founded by the mission and vision, and that want to take things forward with you. We founded the company 3 years ago. I'm about to bring on a co-founder, which is an unusual time, but a necessary time. And I can't say who she is yet because the documentation is still going through, but she's a builder, someone who can help us on that strategic commercial side, loads of experience in digital health and medtech and in commercializing innovation. And that's really important. I think the team you build really reflects the product that comes out of it. And if there's passion there, I think that one of the benefits, because everyone talks about how all the negatives of innovating in pediatrics, one of the benefits in pediatrics is you get people who are mission driven, who have chosen your company over other companies because they like what you're doing, they believe in it. And that, it's a long process, and there's a lot of hard work that goes into being in a startup. And if you can get that extra motivation because you're really bought into what you're building, that certainly helps.
Something that we see at Inveniam, we work with entrepreneurial teams, and they're excellent people, but mostly like 80 or 90% scientists. So it's not usual that we get a team that is balanced in a way that you describe, and they have all the right people in all the right boxes, right? So there is an extra difficulty in finding what is missing in a team so that it will make it acceptable for Marc and other VCs. And where do you go find these people, considering that this is a small pool? It's not like, I was going to say lawyers, but you have tons of them. But for these profiles, sometimes they're hard to find, even with a broader ecosystem.
Maybe 2 points there. I think we hire everywhere, right? So we are not constrained to a specific area, Barcelona, Madrid, wherever. And I also think we hire for soft skills as well, right? So we have very well-educated people. I give you an example of our head of clinical trials. So she had a psychologist degree in London. She had a machine learning degree in Holland. She came back to Europe, to Spain. And her organizational skills are amazing, right? So all of this together. So I think hiring for potential and looking specifically in the soft skills, and maybe a second point I want to hear what Francesca says about it, is that in the startup world, we need instrumental people, but very hands-on, right? So when they come from the corporate world, nothing against corporate companies here, but they are used to deliver a deliverable in a specific context. No, in the startup world, you get an overview of everything that is happening in the company, but you have to be very hands-on. I also like the idea of the mission-driven, because we all share the passion of what we're building. But yeah, so this will be my comments on the HR side. I don't know if you agree or.
I completely agree. And we, in the beginning, we had some false starts. I mean, I'm a recovering pharma person, so I am a corporate person. But, and some of our team members have been as well. But I think what's different is that in all of their roles, they were at the leading edge, innovating, and so it was almost like entrepreneurship within their organizations, which is a very different personality, one that pushes, tries to get things done within the company. So it's a little bit of a different mindset, but, we did have some people that unfortunately weren't a good mix. They wanted to come in and immediately hire consultants to do everything.
No, exactly,
no. So, you do have to roll your sleeves up. You have to do a lot of the work yourself, even if it doesn't fit into your job description. And as a CEO, you do a little bit of everything. But that willingness to be flexible around doing whatever it takes to get to the milestone is really important.
Marc, you wanted to add something?
Yes, just one comment. When we did company creation in the past, not in pediatrics, obviously the academic group, the postdoc that moved from the academic group to the company, and then 2 months later he goes to do a postdoc in Finland. The academic institution, it's very important. And sometimes it's very difficult for the academics to realize what's going on. What I think is a plus in the case of pediatrics is that academics, clinicians, institutions behind, they are very, obviously all of them are in life science, but in this particular sector, they are very purpose-minded. So pediatrics, they are very focused. They publish, even in Nature, blah, 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 but they want to find a solution for something, and that helps a lot on these initial years in comparison to other
areas.
Yeah.
We will open the floor for questions, but before that, I would like to give you time for a take-home message. What would you like people to remember from this talk, from this conversation?
So I think pediatric innovation, it's very important, and it has a lot of opportunities for entrepreneurs, and also you will make an impact, right? So basically, I think it has everything. So let's hope that the future that doesn't forget what we are trying to achieve.
For the audience today, I will say that take-home message is there are good projects. Impact investing is growing, so capital will be there. What is still missing is funders, entrepreneurs. That's what we need, I think, in the ecosystem the most now. Yeah. So I encourage the people.
There's more projects for you to see.
As a founder, I would say we need more investors that are focused on the pediatrics.
Okay, so it evens out.
I agree.
But I do think we need to, this is an incredible collection of people that are really focused on pediatric innovation. We need more of these sessions, and we need 10 times more people in each session. We really need to be spreading the word about pediatric innovation. Kids matter, and we all need to have a commitment to kids. James Wall famously says they're 25% of our population, but 100% of our future, and that's very, very much the case. So we need more founders, more investors, more public and private investment as well, because even, there are a lot of opportunities for startups in the European Union, but the focus tends to be on bigger markets, so there are some limitations with pediatrics. So we need dedicated pediatric efforts on the entrepreneurial side, on the investment side, and on the institutional side.
Thank you, all three. I don't know, are there any questions? I don't think that I can see you well, but...
Thank you, Jesús. Time for one question from the audience. Here in the auditorium of Cosmo Caixa. Someone wants to ask something? Yes, this one. Yes. Oh, two, both. Perfect.
Hi.
Shirley, please.
I am Luis Fernandez. I am the Chief Scientific Officer of Adira Health. I am co-founder, and we are both in Spain and also in the US. Everything you have said is actually brilliant. I really like it. But I think that we need to discuss more how we convince payers, insurance company, etc., that you say pediatric and they say, oh, I have too much type 2 diabetes of adults. Because otherwise it's very challenging, even at the hospital level, regional level, they feel like that's not the big problem that I have for the waiting list. So what will you suggest that we do to actually tackle this issue?
Totally agree with your comment. That's what I was mentioning, and it's trendy, but I will say it again. Systemic impact is what we need. And for example, one of the projects from i4Kids, I don't remember the name, is @Kids or something like @4Kids. It goes about public innovation that can be viable the healthcare system. This is so relevant in Europe, and pediatrics has been forgotten in that. So we need to push, and that's why different type of programs like that has to be to payers and governments. Yeah, I agree, but.
And I would say we have a long way to go, but there are some interesting green shoots coming out, at least in the U.S. The way Medicaid is covering kids, the CHIP, which is the Child Health Insurance Plan, I think it's called. There are some specific legislative efforts that are looking to target kids and make sure that they have access and they're protected. In the U.S., half of the kids aren't covered by insurance.
Today on the news, 75% of the Americans, they have obesity. So if we don't change the mindset on thinking, okay, why they have obesity when they are adults? This could be prevented earlier. That means a lot of food as a medicine, nutrition programs for children. Because basically it's where you learn to eat, and we need that type of things to change because the opportunity is there.
And just one last thing. Access is a huge problem across health systems around the world. Digital health and digital therapeutics and solutions and diagnostics and tests can help with that access problem, and there needs to be more of a highlight on it because. Since COVID, before COVID, but certainly since COVID, there's tremendous attrition within the medical, the medical professionals. It's only getting worse. So there are more and more patients that have fewer and fewer access to physicians, and you can bridge that gap with technology and with innovation, but that innovation has to be reimbursed.
I just wanted to mention that indeed, I agree with your comment as well, that the go-to-market model for any startup, like how do you really start, it's key. My experience with value-based models, at least in the US, has worked very well because there are companies like, I don't know if you know Privia Health, that they own clinics, but they also share efficiency, so cost efficiency might be something. So I think there are different models to explore. Of course, you need to have the CPT codes so that everybody is, like, economics have to work somehow. But my impression is that there are more and more value-based hospitals or systems that they are really encouraging startups to see, okay, if there is any cost efficiency, we do a safe sharing, right, scenario, or it's not easy. I mean, but strategically they work, then you have to go into the numbers and see. That would be one thing. And the other aspect that I wanted to mention, I don't know if you're familiar with Germany. I have lived there for many years, and there is this DIGA, right? DIGA is the instance that has been, I think it's a good example of how a system can really work for digital solutions, because in the end what they do is in 4 months to get your digital solution approved. So it's available, and then you have 2 years to show the clinical evidence, right? If after 2 years you have not shown anything, then they kick you out of the system, basically. And you have the challenge of how this app will be prescribed. But I think these are 2 examples of how going to market in a different way, not just the straight. And probably there will be more, but...
And I think DIGA is interesting because it's regulatory clearance and reimbursement in one
Yes,
path.
exactly.
Yes, please, in a few words, please.
Yeah, thank
Sir?
you. Thank you for this very interesting talk. I just have a question. Now, pharmaceutical companies are now, it's mandatory to develop a pediatric investigational plan. So they are investing in or at least they are pushed, or it's mandatory for them to push in the pediatric plan. But I was wondering if we can lobby VCs in our setting to as well make them mandatory to invest like 5% or 1% or 2% of their fundings into the pediatric startups companies.
But just to be clear, the pediatric plans are for 2 years of regulatory exclusivity. Most of the pharma companies don't have marketing teams that target kids.
I know, but at least they are obliged to develop a pediatric investigational plan. I know at the end it doesn't go to the market, but at least they are forced by regulators to develop that plan. But I was wondering if for investors like VCs, if it could be possible as well to make them mandatory to invest 1% or something like that into pediatric startups.
You're the investor.
Yes, to sum up this.
I don't think I should.
1% or 10%.
I know Marc
No,
is
but
investing 100% in pediatric companies.
it will be great, but this requires, obviously, I think the more things that you do mandatory, the better. I also think that if you do the other way, incentive ways, like the pediatric voucher review in the US, it may be given them incentive to do it, maybe it will work, I don't know, because I am not an expert on that, but better than making them do something, because the PIPs is an example. They do that because it's a mandatory to do it, but then they don't market that.
Right.
So, I think we should twist it to more incentive ways, and that's something to work. This is out of our scope, but governments, blah, 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 to do it. And the pediatric voucher, for me, is an example.
Sanofi has an interesting model because at their founding, they have a mandate to invest back into pediatric research. So they do it through CSRs, but they also do it through what they call the S Foundation, their not-for-profit foundation. So they do it. But I was recently asked by my board, let's see again if pharma could be a stakeholder. So we did this massive scanning, going into our networks. There are only 3 pharmas that were doing de novo pediatric research. It was Lilly, Roche, and Sanofi. Lilly's fired the entire team. Roche only does R&D, no marketing team, and then Sanofi does do things, but via this foundation. So, that's, and then there are dedicated pediatric pharmaceutical companies like Day One, like OncoHeroes, YMABs, but very, very few of them, and usually focused on a single therapeutic.
Perfect. So we have to finish this encouraging panel session. Thank you very much, Ana García, Marc, Ramis, Francesca, Wuttke, and this moderation by Jesús, Purroy. Thank you. Obviously, there will be always a good reason behind to invest.